Welcome fibre friends, you've stepped into Spellbound Stitching, where I seek to weave a little magic into every stitch, twist and skein. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. It's nice to see you all here. Today is Thursday, the 24th of July, and I'm coming to you from Upper Hutt, Wellington, New Zealand, where I live. My name is Kat, and I'm an avid crafter, dabbling in knitting, crochet, cross-stitch, patchwork, dressmaking and baking. I'm also an indie dyer and have just started my journey into knitwear and crochet design. And by day I work full-time in cybersecurity. You can find me on Ravelry as Broomstitch, or follow me on Instagram or Facebook as Broomstitch NZ. You can check my online store at broomstitch.co.nz or contact me by email, direct message, or leave a comment below the video. So I'm attempting to upload one of these videos at least once every month, and there was a little bit of a gap between episode 4 and 5, so with episode 6 I'm trying to get myself back on track, so I thought today would be a good day to film. I'm using sort of my lunch break to do some filming, and then I'm going to go back to work after this, just while we've got some daylight. Otherwise, you know, I go to work in the dark and I come home in the dark, and it's not very good for filming a podcast. And weekends have just been really busy lately, as I'm sure everyone can relate. Life just kind of gets in the way sometimes. But here we are today, and I thought I'd show you a bit of what I've been up to. And one of the goals that I had for myself is to create a sense of community here. And thank you so much to everyone who has been liking and commenting on my videos and subscribing, and people who are reaching out via social media. I love it so much that I get to hear from you guys and speak with everybody who is enjoying fibre crafts and enjoying the podcast. So thank you, I really appreciate it, and I can't wait for it just to keep growing. I'm having so much fun, and I hope that you guys are too. So a little bit more about me, I guess, if you want to know me. I am a pet mom, so I have lots of pets. We've historically had a lot of pets in our house, but at the moment we have 2 cats and a dog. So Onyx and Smudge are our cats, and Frank is our little dog. I am a mum to a 16-year-old daughter. Not only am I a crafter, but also I'm a bit of a football fan, and particularly following the Women's Football League and our national team, the Football Ferns. But I did end up going to the Wrexham game that was here in Wellington, and finally attended a game in person with Phoenix actually won, so that was pretty cool. A really great night, really cool atmosphere in the stadium. And out of the 25,000 people that happened to be at the game, we were sitting next to 2 of my closest friends, completely unplanned. So that was amazing. Wonderful coincidence. But I think it made the game and the experience even better, to be honest. So that was fun this weekend. I'm also a bit of a Halloween enthusiast, which you might gather throughout what I'm talking about. I have a big Halloween party that I invite my friends to every year, and I go a bit nuts with the party food because it's a great excuse for me to make some fun little baking treats that are like monster or spooky themed, but I keep it cute for the kids too. I don't have a birthday party because my birthday's right around Christmas and nobody's ever around. So instead I figured I'm going to transfer my love of parties to Halloween. And then everyone can dress up and it's just a great excuse to hang out and get together. You might have also gathered that I'm absolutely in love with the colour purple. But this kind of leads nicely into what I'm wearing, because I chose to make this sweater in Halloween colours, but not necessarily Halloween themed, like there's no skeletons, ghosts or whatever, so that I could get away with wearing it outside that period. But I chose to make this one, which is the Miele sweater by Knitting for Breakfast. I've done it in a 3/4 sleeve, but of course you could do a t-shirt version like shown on the pattern, or you could do a longer sleeve version. The yarn that I chose to use for this item was Dark Harbour Starboard, which is a composition of 70% superwash merino and 30% silk, which means the garment has a really lovely drape on it. Like it just sits and flows really nicely. So that is a 4-ply or fingering weight yarn, and it comes with 400 meters per 100 grams. I used 4 different colorways here. So I used Scuttlebutt, which is the charcoaly grey colour that you can see as the main colour. And then for the colour work, I used Erica, which is this really super vibrant purple. That is one of my favourites that Nikki dyes. I have some more of it in some fluffy yarn and some more fingering, her port fingering, to make a headband for myself, but to blend in with and match my hair. The Luca Brasi is the orange colour. Dead Man's Finger is the green. And I used 1.5 skeins of the grey. I used 39 grams of the Erica because I chose that to be where we started. And the ribbing on the bottom is also Erica, so that I would have a bit more purple in the sweater. I used 21 grams of the orange, and I used 26 grams of the green. So this is an all over colourwork sweater. I'll put a photo up so that you guys can get a better view of it, because it's a bit awkward trying to stand up and show you that way. But because I had so much left over, I did make myself another Halloween sweater, which more of a t-shirt, cropped t-shirt, which I will show maybe next time or later in the podcast series. I'm trying to wear some of my historical FOs each time we do an episode, so that you guys get to see what I have made previously to starting the podcast. Eventually we're gonna run out of finished FOs prior to the podcast, and then I'll just start wearing some of my previous FOs featured here. So I purchased the yarn at Wellington, which is like a little wool market that's a pop-up venture between several local wool indie dyers and fibre artists and creators. It's run by Joe from Yarn Therapy, and they just pop up, I think, at least 4 times during the year. The needles I used for this are a 3.75 and a 3.25 mil, but the pattern recommends a 3.5 and a 4. I tend to be a little bit of a loose knitter, so I did go down a needle size, but I didn't go too far down because this was my first all over colour work and I wanted to really work on my tension. The point of choosing this project was to work on my tension, so I didn't want to make it too tight. I also wanted the yarn to still have a really nice drape. The gauge for this one's 24 stitches over 30 rows, and I made the size medium so that there would be a little bit of positive ease, so it sits quite nicely. I started this one on May 26, 2024, and I didn't finish it until September 19th, 2024. It was sort of one I kept popping down and coming back to. I did have to unpick it a couple of times from memory, just while I was getting the hang of it. But it is a round yoke construction, and I absolutely love it, and I definitely would make another one. If I ever run out of things in my favourites or in my queue, which I don't think I will in this lifetime, but you never know, I might get the urge to make another one. But I could definitely recommend it. It was a really well worded pattern. Everybody comments on the design, the colour work when I wear it out, so it's quite a striking piece, but it was really lovely to knit, and maybe not for a beginner, but as my first all over colour work, I had no complaints about the way the pattern was written. It was really great. So my next segment is usually what's in my cup, and this is my lovely handmade in New Zealand mug that I was given for my anniversary present, and I've just got a plain old English breakfast in my cup today. I hope you've remembered to grab yourself something to sip on while you join me and have a project in your lap that you're working on while you choose to spend some time with me. I suppose I should talk up front a little bit about the Kiwi Makealong that we've got running. So a group of podcasters led by Marina from Strawberry Patches from New Zealand have all gotten together to run a Makealong. and we're calling it the Kiwi Mal. So you can use the hashtags Kiwi Mal or Kiwi Mal 2025 on Instagram to highlight what it is you're doing for this make-along. But all of us have joined together to offer prizes, and we've had a whole lot of other people in the industry, designers and other creators, offering up prizes as well. Those are all listed in the Ravelry thread. I'll put all the information that you need to know about the make-along and where to find everything in the description box below, but you can also find my show notes on my website if you want to go somewhere else to look for the links for everything that I talk about in the episode. So there's 10 of us involved from the podcaster side. Me, of course, Marina from the Strawberry Patches Yarns and podcast, Alana from the Thank You for Knitting podcast, and she's also Lupine Wool Co yarn store in Parnell and Black Cat Co knitting company designs. Jill and Kylie from Cup of Tea and a Yarn, and Kylie is also the sock engineer. She's recently started a business where she's cranking tubes on her sock machine to sell the tubes so that you can put in your heels and toes and cuffs and have some quick socks, which I think is a fantastic idea. Go Kylie. There's Lisa from Unwind and Knit With Me podcast and online yarn store. She's also got a little physical store in Christchurch that will open by appointment and is often open on a Saturday. There is Bex from Rebecca and Knits podcast. She's also from Upper Hutt in Wellington. Sue and Vanessa from Yarns from the South, two ladies from Invercargill in New Zealand. Bibi and Stephen, they're from Christchurch, and their podcast is called Just Another Knitting Podcast. We've got Aimee from the Aimee Makes podcast, but she's also Handmaiden, which is an online store where she sells self-striping sock yarns, hand-dyed indie yarns and fibre. And we've got Donna from Blind and Knitting, who also has a podcast and some really good content on her channel if you want to go and take a look. So the rules are new cast-ons only, please. They have to be made with a New Zealand yarn or fibre or designed by a New Zealander. So we're doing a make-along because anything that you can make by hand or craft, it counts, as long as it meets those criteria that it uses some sort of New Zealand materials or is designed by a New Zealander. So that could be knitting, crochet, weaving, felting, spinning, anything you can think of really, dressmaking, making bags, etc. As long as they fit the main rules, then you're good to go. You can enter by posting in the finished objects thread on the Ravelry group that is run through Marina's Strawberry Patches Ravelry, or you can use the hashtags on Instagram to place your entry. Now, the make-along has been running since the 1st of June until the 31st of August, so after that we will be drawing prizes. You'll just probably need to give us a minute to do all the admin behind the scenes to gather up all the entries and make sure we've got everyone before we draw some prizes. But there's heaps, and the entries are open to anyone, so there's some of us that will post internationally, so if there's an international winner, they're still eligible for prizes. So it's all very exciting. There are some resources which you can see on the screen that have been collated by Julie from Wool on Wheels. So she's got where to find New Zealand yarns and where to find NZ designers on her website. So if you're looking for some inspiration, go check those out, and the link will be down below as to where you can find those. Yeah, I think that's everything to do with the make-along. But can't wait to see what you decide to make along with us to help support our New Zealand fibre industry and New Zealand designers. Okay, that takes us to finished objects. Now, some of these I'm sort of referring to as entries into the make along, but we're not drawing prizes for the hosts. So it's more about participation for us and having a chance to use some Kiwi fibres and do some makes from Kiwi designers. So the first finished object I've got is a self-designed pattern made from Wild Earth Yarns Naturals, which is 100% Honoi fiber, which is undyed. So my daughter has been asking me for a cabled vest for a long time, you know, like a waistcoat with its buttoned up, and I couldn't find any patterns that I liked, so I thought I would have a go making something myself. So yeah, gorgeous yarn. The color is abalone in the undyed Honoi, and Honoi is a breed of sheep that is exclusive to New Zealand. There's one farm in New Zealand that have developed this breed, and it's super soft, it's super durable, and it's woolly without being like rustic or scratchy or itchy. So an amazing fiber. It's a bit of a hot topic in New Zealand at the moment. Everybody seems to be spinning and crafting with it. So that's a view of the back. Once I got going, I had fun making it, but of course when you're self-designing something or trying to come up with something, it's a little bit difficult to get excited when you're having to continually frog it because it's not working, or you didn't put the right number of stitches on, or whatever. So I purchased this from the Wild Earth Yarns online store, and I used 5.5 50-gram skeins, which is the equivalent of 275 grams of yarn, because they come in 50-gram balls with 105 meters each. Now every vest pattern that I looked at or researched said I was going to need like 1,000 meters, so I bought 8 or 10 balls of this yarn and I only used 5.5. So now I might have to make something else, or order a little bit more and do a full sweater. I used 4mm needles for the cable design. I started it on the 28th of June and I finished it on the 5th of July because I just wanted to get it done. The buttons are just from Spotlight, which is a big box store here in New Zealand, like a Joann's Fabric, or the Spotlight also is in Australia as well. It was really lovely to knit with. The only thing that I am not 100% happy with, that I would change if I did it again, was I didn't make the designs on the shoulders line up or match up. So I would rework that in the future, but obviously when you're wearing it, nobody can tell. And unless you were a knitter yourself, you probably wouldn't notice. But she's absolutely stoked with it. So I'm going to take that as a win, because if you can please a teenager with some knitwear, I think we're good. So overall, I'm really happy with the finished object. I don't know if anybody's interested in it, I might think about publishing a pattern. I will have to learn about grading, and I would obviously have to change it so that the shoulders line up. Or maybe not, I don't know. Does that matter to you guys? Maybe let me know. So that's my first FO. Now, there's going to be quite a few FOs, but keeping in mind, I had a lot of these already as works in progress, so I haven't, in the 3 weeks I think it's been since I've filmed, I haven't just been absolutely crazy and pulled 100 things off the needle, although it might look like it when we get into it. So the next FO I've got is the Louise by Zloty. Now, I've mentioned that my best friend in Australia, in Melbourne, is having a baby. And so I've been making some baby things, and I have to get the package posted off probably the end of next week, beginning of next week, or maybe tomorrow even, if I manage to finish the last few things that I need to do, because the baby is coming in the first week of August, so I needed to get a move on. So there's going to be a lot of baby things, and I'm pretty sure she's not going to watch this podcast, so it might be safe enough to show them. But the next thing is my Louise by Zloty, which was in the Earth Yarns 16 fingering, which is a little singlet or vest. I chose this design because the baby could wear it as either. It has turned out what I think is quite a bit bigger than 3 to 6 months. There's no gauge information on the pattern, so it's really hard to know if you're doing the right thing. But the great thing about kids is they can wear things that are a little bit too big as layers, or they can wear things for a long time when they're slightly too big. So maybe that'll be it. But this is a super fine superwash merino, so it's incredibly soft. There's only 2 sizes on the pattern. It is a free pattern, and it comes in a 0 to 3 months and a 3 to 6, and this is supposed to be the 3 to 6 month size. I purchased the yarn from the Yarn Queen at the Wairarapa Wool weekend, and the reason I picked this pattern is because they had one knit up as a sample, and I just thought it was too cute. The buttons, again, are just from Spotlight. They're just a shimmery blue button. Sometimes they look grey, but that's okay. So it features a really nice little lace design in the front, and it's got moss stitch around the edges and around the hem. But super soft, super drapey. Hopefully she loves it for her little man that is arriving in a couple of weeks. So I used the colorways BL70. I used a 3mm needle as recommended. There was no gauge information. I used the whole skein apart from like a little nugget, which I've just sort of stashed away as scrap yarn for when you need a piece to do a provisional cast on or something like that. I started it on the 20th of May and I didn't finish it until the 6th of July because it's just been hanging around in my car as my car knitting because of all this stockinette. So I got to here and chucked it in the car so that whenever I was waiting for something I could just add a few more rows, like when you're waiting for school pickup. So that is my Louise. The next one I did sort of counts for the Kiwi Makealong because it is by a New Zealand designer, and that is the Tracking Along Cardigan by Rachel Kleynhans, which is Rachie Knits. Now I knit the newborn size, but it does go up to 10 to 12-year-olds, so it's a really good value pattern. I used the Indecita Easy Wash, which is 100% alpaca, and I think it was the wrong choice necessarily for the design because it doesn't show up the cables very well. But here it is. So just a little newborn cardigan. I also modified the design to be a V-neck instead of a high circle neck because I don't know, I don't like things up around babies' necks because they've got heaps of little folds that just get, you know, milk and everything stuck in them. So it's got a lovely little cable design under the arms, but it doesn't show up as well as it could have. It's actually showing up really nicely on the camera compared to real life, but it's got this twisty design, diamond design, which is just done by left and right twists, so you don't need a cable needle to do it. But yeah, super sweet design, super soft yarn, easy wash because she just needs to be able to chuck everything into the washing machine. I used a 3 and a 3.75mm needle where the pattern called for a 3.5 and a 4mm needle. I think because the yarn was so soft my gauge was quite a bit looser, but overall I'm really happy with the little cardigan. Buttons again from Spotlight, just some nice little gifts to give to my friend for her baby. I used 1.38 skeins, which is 69 grams. They come in a 50-gram ball, which is 112 meters. And because I had left over, I've also knitted a little baby hat to go with the cardigan. It's just plain, my own sort of recipe. There is a Tracking Along hat, but I just wanted a plain. So this took 15 grams of yarn, and I still have 15 grams, so he might be getting another hat, or I might do some little booties with that in for a cuff or something, just to use up the yarn, because I don't really like having scrappy bits that I don't have a plan for lying around when there's that much. So I knitted the newborn size. I started it on the 8th of July and finished it on the 11th of July. It was a super quick knit. Baby things are, I used magic loop to do the sleeves, just because that's easier than doing super small circumference on DPNs with really slippery yarn, being that I only have metal DPNs that just kept sliding off. So magic loop was the way to go. Yeah, I think that's everything about that one. Go check out Rachie Knits designs because she's got a heap in her portfolio for kids and for adults, and like I said, her patterns are very size inclusive. From newborn to 10 to 12 years is a pretty good deal. So I mean, maybe he could get one of those cardigans for the rest of, you know, his childhood. We'll see, to see how much she likes the knitwear, I guess. Okay, the next one, what is kind of my big project that I have finished. I'm going to scoot back a little bit so that I can show you, but it is the Sea of Dreams baby blanket by Aimee Alexander. Now I knit this one to be like the heirloom shawl baby blanket that is for the baby that I don't know, knitters feel like every baby has to have an heirloom shawl, but it's finished. And it's quite big. I made the cot size. There's 3 sizes available. So there's a cot size, which is this one. There is a stroller size or car seat size, and there is like a little snuggly one, so just a little cozy thing that they can hold on to, and you know, babies suck on everything, so probably that too. I used the DMC 100% baby, which is a superwash merino. It comes in a 50 gram ball, and there's 225 meters per 50 grams, and the color that I used was this natural cream. I'll hold it a little bit closer so you can see the design. Maybe you can't with my face behind it. Oh well. I purchased it from my local yarn store, which is Thimbles and Threads in Upper Hutt. I used a 3.25mm needle and a 3.5mm needle, which was the recommended. I didn't check gauge. I didn't really care if it worked out a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, because it's a baby blanket. And I knew I would have extra yarn anyway. So the gauge is 24 stitches by 32 rows, and you can probably tell by looking at it, it's my gauge is quite a bit bigger, but that's okay. I'm happy with it. So I used 3.84 skeins, which means I used 192 grams. I started it on the 20th of March and I finished it on the 18th of July, just because it was going to be my slow burn project. It's 5 pattern repeats, so I was kind of just tackling them in chunks. And one side has moss stitch down the side, and the top and bottom has the picot edging. Really happy with the pattern, beautifully written. When I did the first pattern repeat, when I started it, I wasn't sure I was happy with it. Once I'd finished the first pattern repeat, I knew I loved it and I was going to keep going. So yeah, beautiful heirloom shawl to post over to my friend, and hopefully she likes it. So that leads me to my next one, which is the Firebird Scarf. Now this is designed by Alana from Black Cat Knitting Company, and it is designed to be one of those tiny little skinny mini scarves that you wear around your neck. And so here is my version. Purple, of course. It is a lovely variegated skein from Nuts About Alpacas, so it's 100% alpaca, so it is incredibly soft. Because that's what you want around your neck, right? And the colour is called Multi 026, and I bought it at Wool Fest in Auckland this year. It's a garter stitch asymmetrical triangle with a beautiful eyelet detail along the top. I kind of had it as my car, train, handbag knitting project, whatever, but you just wrap it around a couple of times and you've got this gorgeous little thing to keep your neck warm. Great fit inside your coat if you don't want a big bulky shawl but you still want a warm neck. So this is going to be probably a good commuting scarf for me, because it's also not too big when you put it in your bag. Highly recommend the pattern, of course. It was a great little make, and Alana says you will want to make more of them, and I definitely do. They're definitely going to be on the gift knits list for Christmas, I think. So I made a fingering weight version. It kind of says you can make any gauge, any size. There's suggestions for needles for fingering, DK and worsted weight, and suggestions for stitch counts or row counts to get to the desired size, or there is suggestions on how to weigh your yarn appropriately if you want to make sure you use up the whole skein. I used 45 grams out of a 50 gram ball, so I've got 5 grams left. So I started that one on the 16th of July and ended up finishing it on the 20th, because I just took it everywhere with me and it worked up super fast. You also don't need to carry a pattern around with you, because once you know what you're doing, you kind of just keep going. Yeah, highly recommend it. I used a 3.75mm needle to achieve this size because I know that I like that gauge in a fingering weight yarn, particularly in squishy garter stitch. So the last finished object that I've got is something a little bit different. I used up some scrap acrylic DK to make a little kiwi bird. My friend wanted a kiwi to attach to a mobile to hang above the baby's crib. So she said to me, I could probably make the leaves. Would you make the bird for me? Because I really want him to have a kiwi on it. So I crocheted a little amigurumi kiwi bird. The design is by NZHooked Designs. It's stuffed with all my scraps. So whenever I trim ends or whatever, I have a big jar that I stuff them into, and then I use the scraps to stuff toys and bits and pieces. The little safety eyes are just from Thimble & Threads, the local yarn store. And I don't know how much of each colour I use, but it's obviously not much. I think I made his nose a little bit too long, but that's okay. He's very cute and he makes me smile every time I see him sitting on the table. So I think it kind of does the job. And he's probably going to get a little squished when he gets sent over to Australia anyway. But that is my little kiwi bird. And to go with him, I have started making, this sort of fits into new cast-ons and works in progress, I have started making a little kakapo friend. So far we have a little body with a beak and little embroidery feathers on his chest and a little wing. So what's left to do is the second wing, the tail, and some feet. I cast him on last night. This one took me about the length of a movie to make. We watched the Adam Project and I cast him on and finished him. This one took a bit longer because he's got a lot more little bits, and I was also procrastinating last night. So that's my own fault that I didn't get him finished last night. But yeah, they're really fiddly because they're so small, particularly like the toes. Using a 3.5mm hook to do little tiny toes with DK weight yarn is a bit fussy. And I would also say about the patterns, if you're a brand new crocheter, they're not really beginner friendly. You have to know what you're doing to understand the instructions. There's a little bit of working it out for yourself, but the designs are so cute. I'm absolutely stoked that I chose these ones and chose to make these cute little birds. And I think I might have to make myself a little desk kakapo to sit and look at me while I'm at work. So that's sort of the end of my finished objects and starting on new cast-ons, I guess, with the kakapo. I have also cast on one other new thing, which is a ranunculus. I was watching Alana's podcast and she was talking a wee bit about her ranunculuses and her experiences. And it's kind of been one of those things, well, yeah, I'll get around to knitting it if I want, if I ever do. So I've cast one on, finally, in purple. I have 2 skeins of this yarn, which is called Mr. Gustav, and it is by Yarns in her a classic DK, I think it's called. Let me check my notes. Yeah, classic 8-ply DK. There's 230 meters per 100 grams. So it's a standard DK weight. So I have just finished the texture part of the yoke, the round yoke. Very interesting short rows in this pattern. Be interesting to see how it wears and what it looks like when I'm wearing it. But I've only got 2 skeins. So the idea is I'm going to finish the yoke, see how much yarn I've got left. I've not even got halfway through this ball yet, and I'm up to the raglan shaping under the arms. And then kind of judge what kind of length sleeves I'm going to do. I'm kind of hoping I'll get a 3/4 sleeve, because what I've done to, I don't like too much positive ease, so I'm actually knitting the extra small, like the smallest size on the pattern, so that I don't have so much ease. And I'm thinking I might do a little bit of shaping in the body to reduce how much yarn I'm using. I'm also using 5.5mm needles instead of 6mm needles, just because I know I'm a bit of a loose knitter and it has worked out well for gauge. It doesn't quite match the recommended gauge, which is 14 stitches over 20 rows. I think I'm on 15 stitches over 20 rows, but that's okay because I don't like too much positive ease, and I'm kind of hoping it will turn out a little bit smaller. Also, it's superwash yarn and it will block heaps, like it'll stretch, grow a lot. So you can see there's tubular cast on, some texture happening here, a little bit of lace happening here, and some more texture down the bottom. I've started that one on the 21st of July, and that was the progress I made in one night. So yeah, it works up pretty quickly. Everybody goes on about how quickly it works up, but I put this on hold to make the Kiwi Bird and the kakapo. So the aim is, I'm going away this weekend, so I wanted to have the part where I'm just up to going round and round and round. So I've got an easy project to do while I'm traveling. Of course, you know, when you're traveling, you never just take one project. You have to take at least two. Maybe just 2 in a backup, 3. I'm pretty sure most knitters' suitcases are full of yarn and projects when they go away. Clothes don't matter, but we need to have our knitting. So because I've been making sure that I got all the baby stuff done, I haven't made any progress on my whips. So the Sanna cardigan is still exactly where it was. I made a bit of a mistake, so I did have to rip it back a little bit on the sleeve, but also that's not necessarily an easy one to take away. So I'll probably do the Ranunculus while I'm away and then come back and do the Sanna cardigan that's currently on the go, and the rest of my whips I'm going to have to go through and figure out where I'm up to and what needs to come off the list. So what's in my queue? It hasn't really changed. I do have plans still to make the 3 Seasons cardigan by Wool and Pine Designs in my yarn therapy, but I have caked up the yarn from Prosper Yarn to do the Instant Crush by Locatelli. So I showed these last time in their skein form. I've now caked them up. So as soon as I finish the Sanna cardigan, because I've put that restriction on myself, this is going on my needles. So that is the colours I have are Blossom, Tusk, Teal and Lulu as my main colour. Purple, of course. That is designed by Locatelli, Prosper Yarn, 70% mohair and 30% silk. And what you do for this particular pattern is you hold it double. So I'm going to pull from the centre and the outside of the ball at the same time. The needles recommended in the pattern is 3 and 4 millimeter needles, and the gauge is 19 stitches over 25 rows. I'm definitely going to have to do a gauge swatch, and I think I'm going to play around with the configuration of colour while doing that gauge swatch. This is an all over colour work jersey, and because silk mohair doesn't have the same kind of give or stretch that wool does, I'm going to have to be very careful to make sure that I meet gauge. So other than that, it'll just be, I don't think I'm going to manage to get the Sanna cardigan finished, the Instant Crush and the 3 Seasons cardigan by the end of the Makealong, but I'm going to try. So you might see them all by the end of the Makealong. Next podcast? No, maybe the one after. Okay, so that takes me to new patterns and designers. And this one I'm really excited to share with you guys that I found. It is the Acacia leaf cardigan by Sedna Yang. So this one is an all over colourwork cardigan. It's done from the top down in the round and has a steek. And I think I'm going to have a go at it. I haven't done a steek before. I haven't decided what yarns I'm going to use, but I think it's going to make it into my queue, guys. You might be able to see on the picture that it's got a single red stitch inside the center of the flower at the top of each branch, which I think is an incredibly cute detail. But I'm thinking I also might add a bead there for my version, because how exciting would that be? But I also need to decide on colors. Of course, I'm thinking purple. Surprise. But I don't know, but it's definitely going on my queue because it's just so stunning. And like I said, I haven't tried a steek yet, and I think I might be ready for the challenge. I watched BB and Stephen's podcast the other day where BB was showing how she did a steek and she was skeptical and terrified, and now she trusted the process and did it, and she's done it and she's happy. So if BB can do it, I can do it. Fingers crossed. Otherwise, BB, I might be contacting you for help. It says it's an intermediate skill. I would probably say any stranded colour work is intermediate skill, but particularly because this one has steeking involved as well. Cutting your own knitting is terrifying. So sweater surgery I've done before, but that's different to cutting it and also wanting it to stay. So I'm going to have to choose a good sticky yarn, a grippy yarn, a rustic, not a superwash, not a slippery alpaca or silk, something that will hold on to itself a little bit better. Yeah, it's 27 stitches over 31 rows, so it's quite dense. So I'm thinking because it's colour work, it's quite a dense stitch. It might be next winter's project. I might have to start being on the lookout for the perfect yarn now so that it's all ready to go. It also has a gauge information for the gauge in the stitch pattern, which is the size is 11.5 centimeters by 16.5 centimeters, which equals 31 stitches and 45 rows. So that if you wanted to, for your gauge swatch, do an entire pattern repeat, you've got that information there too, which I thought was a really nice touch by the designer. So yeah, this one popped up in my recommended view on Ravelry and I gasped and very quickly added it to my favorites. The second one that I found is because a lot of podcasts that I've been watching lately, that everyone seems to be looking for that perfect squishy winter cardigan that's classic but elegant, and I stumbled across this one called the Confetti Cardigan Adult by Nashwa Seika. It comes in 7 sizes, but the pattern is also available in her portfolio in a junior and a mini, so you can get a kid's version and a baby version. It's knit in a DK or 8-ply weight yarn, and the gauge is 20 stitches across 40 rows, so it's got quite a short, quite a dense row gauge, but crosswise it's quite loose for a DK. The recommended needles are 3.5 and 4 millimeter, and it's an all-over rib, so it would be delightfully squishy and really warm, and it kind of gives that I don't know, like bookish, dark academia kind of vibe to me. And it's got the beautiful double knitting button placket. So Lisa from Unwind and Knit with Me has recently done one with a double knitting placket. I've done the champagne cardigan with the double knitting placket, and it just looks so professional and lovely. Yes, I agree with Lisa. It took forever doing it on the champagne cardigan because that's really oversized, and I made a big size in that one. I think just doing the button placket took me like 4 or 5 days, where the whole cardigan took me like 3 weeks. So it's a huge chunk of time doing one of those big double knitting bands, but absolutely worth it. You just have to be prepared that it's going to take you a while. Yeah, it also calls for, the pattern also says you need a few grams of Drops Melody, which is a chunky alpaca that you can't get in New Zealand. I couldn't really work out what you would need it for, but I've put the photo of what I think it is, and it looks like there's an I-cord that goes around the button band and across the back, which I think they've used it to give it a bit of stability, and they've used super soft alpaca so that it's not irritating like a bump on the back of your neck. There's no information as to where you use it for in the pattern description, but that's what I could see in the photos. I might be wrong. That was just what I kind of worked out, but I think this is a stunner, and because I feel like I don't have enough cardigans, which is why I've got the Sanna cardigan and the 3 Seasons cardigan and a couple of others in my queue, Winter's Beach, I think this one's going to get added to the queue as well. And I think it's the perfect opportunity, because it's called the Confetti Cardigan, to use a hugely speckled yarn. So I'm either going to have a hunt around, or I might dye something custom for it. That could be fun. maybe it'll turn into a colorway if everybody likes it. Who knows? That's the fun about being an indie dyer, is you have an idea, you experiment a little bit, have a play. Sometimes it works, sometimes it really doesn't. The ones that really don't get over dyed and added to my stash, or they just get added to my stash, and I will do gift knitting or donation knitting with those when I've got it to a colour that's reasonable but not one that I want to continue to produce as a colourway. But when they work and you pull out this beautiful thing from your dye pots and you've got a brand new colourway, it honestly, there's not a whole lot. It's about the same kind of euphoria as casting off that final stitch or weaving in that final end on your project and you get to wear it. Yeah, it's probably one of the best bits about it being an indie dyer, to be honest. So that's all my new patterns and designers that I wanted to bring to the table today. Acquisitions, there is not many, which is a good thing, but I've recently taught my other half to knit, and they've decided that they want to try doing socks, to learn how to do a heel flap and gusset top down sock, and I suggested starting with DK. So we're going to use that vanilla DK sock pattern that I featured in the last episode by the crazy sock lady, and Marina from Strawberry Patches happened to post these gorgeous babies on her Instagram story, and I immediately rushed to her shop and bought them because it is her Zebra DK base, which is 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon, which makes them absolutely perfect for DK socks. The colorway for this one is Glowworm Jellies, which they absolutely do remind me of candy. So we're going to make some matching socks. That'll be pretty exciting. I'm a DPN sock knitter. I think it'll probably be magic loop sock knitting for them because I can't see them coping terribly well with managing 5 DPNs at once and all the click-clacking noises that DPNs make. Won't go down well. That's my only yarn acquisition, and the only other thing I got was this cute little mushrooms in a jar pin, because as you know I love a pin. I don't know if you know, but I also love mushrooms. I have a tattoo on my leg that is comprised of mushrooms and gemstones, and I just had to have it because that was also on her stories and it was super cute. And I got my other half some cute sloth stitch stoppers to go on the end of your needles like these, to stop their needles slipping off the end of their stitches slipping off the end of their needles. So that's my only acquisition. My indie dyer of the episode, because I've talked about doing the instant crush in Prosper yarn, I thought it was only fitting to use Prosper yarn as my indie of the episode. So that was started by Les, and since starting by dyeing yarn in her home, starting in her kitchen, and then the family objected to the smell of wool throughout the house apparently, so then they kicked her down to the basement where she continued, but apparently the smell wafted up through the rest of the house and they were still quite annoyed, so Liz decided to get herself a space and started a little shop down in Glen Eden by the train station, which I had been to a couple of times when I lived in West Auckland. Because the business grew and grew and grew, she ended up being able to hire a couple of lovely ladies for her team, which included Tara and Isabella. And they've recently, well, probably not that recently now, it's probably a couple of years now, they got to move to a big studio shop in Ponsonby, on 54 Ponsonby Road in Greylin, Auckland. So right in the city centre, where they do all their dyeing and they display all their yarns hanging from the window. They have knit nights, they have coffee on site, they also have a doggy water bowl, so if you have your furry friend on a walk you can give them a drink outside their store. But the team at Prosper Yarn are absolutely fantastic. Beautiful people. I love looking at their stuff that they put up on Instagram and get inspired a lot by the patterns that they've chosen to knit. Alana from Black Cat Knitting Company is very good friends with Liz, because Liz is also an expat from, I don't know if it's Canada or the US, but if you check out Alana's channel on YouTube, she does a fantastic interview with Liz, and you'll get the full rundown and you'll get to see the joy of these two talking about yarn and fibre. So they do hand dyeing their own fibre. They do hand dyeing of their own yarns. They've got several different bases, but I think the thing they're probably most proud of is they've got a signature blend. So they've got their very own yarn that a mill produces exclusively for them. And one of the really cool things that they do is they dye all their colorways across all their different bases quite often. So you can see it in many different forms, and the skill that they dye it with is fantastic because there's hardly any variation that I've managed to see. I've also done another project with their yarn where I knitted my mum a little shawlette. It was the Puaka shawlette, and it was done in their Defying Gravity colorway inspired by Wicked, and it was this beautiful icy blue in their Butte base, which is a singles merino, which means it's super soft because it's only single spun, and ideal for things like shawls where you want a lot of drape but you also aren't going to get a lot of friction and pilling. Because it's so soft, it's not particularly strong. Yeah, so that is a bit about Prosper Yarns. If you want to go check them out, the link is below in the description box. So I normally do a bit of a crafter's tip, and today I would thought I would talk about how to block hats. Now, when you lay a hat flat to dry, I've got a couple here to use as demos. When you lay a hat flat to dry, you often end up with like a fold. So lying them down flat isn't ideal. But then how else do you dry a hat? Now, some people like to blow up a balloon to the size of the wearer's head, and then they'll balance it like in a cup or something with the hat stretched over it. Now that's fine for everybody else, but fun fact about me is I'm terrified of balloons. I absolutely hate them. So what I do, especially because it doesn't necessarily work for long hats either, so what I do is I have a vase. And I have a bowl, and it's quite a heavy bowl so that it's not easy to knock off, and I just stack them on top of each other, and then I stretch the hat over the top. And it does look a little bit like a jellyfish, but it doesn't seem to dry with this line, and that sort of just sits on my kitchen table like that, and it works for a long slouchy hat. When it's nearly kind of dry, I take it off and lay it flat to dry, but also it's a really good opportunity to take a cool photo of the crown of your hat. So that's my tip for drying hats in the shape of a head. You can either block it on a balloon the size of the head, or you can find a bowl that fits and balance it on something else and stretch that over the top. And the beauty of doing it that way is I've got several different size bowls that I use to get the right size. Okay, that leads me to a cyber tip. Now, I've covered a few other topics, but something that I thought was probably more of interest rather than a tip or a hint is to be aware of your digital footprint. Now, what that means is, like when you go for a walk along the beach and you turn around and you can see your footprints left in the sand, that happens when you're browsing the web. So there is a digital record of everywhere you've been or everywhere you go on the internet. Now, there is a passive digital footprint, which is done through your web browsing, general web browsing. And that is from things like cookies. Now, cookies is not the delicious baked goods kind. It is a tiny small piece of software that tracks what you do. Most often, and you'll notice that when you go onto a website, it asks you to accept the cookies or decline them. And by declining them, it can reduce the amount of functionality on the website. Or it may mean that you can't actually use the website. But by accepting them, you are accepting a tiny piece of software that is going to track your movement on that site. So what you do while you're on the site, where you came from even potentially, but definitely where you go to thereafter. And those are session cookies, and they remove themselves quite often once you move away from wherever it is you've been. But you can go into your browser and clear your cache and clear all cookies if you want to get rid of them. So that is passive digital footprint, but there's also your active digital footprint, which is data that you submit online. So that could be intentionally or unintentionally when you fill out a form, when you create an account, when you type comments on social media, when you're looking at Google searches. All of that creates a bit of a profile about you. And I'm sure everybody's had that experience where you've been talking about a thing or you've been looking at a thing and all of a sudden it shows up on your social media like somebody's been listening or watching. That's called big data. So some of these companies collect all the data about you on the internet and they use it to target ads or whatever it is that they're wanting to get you to do. So things like, so another part of your digital footprint is your digital identity. So your email is your primary digital identity. Now, some people have a primary email address, they have a work email address, and some people even have a burner email address where they just sign up to things that they don't necessarily want everybody to be able to have their personal email, which is technically a good practice. You just have to make sure you've got all your security settings set up on each of those equally. Ideally, we want to keep work and personal separate as well, so don't sign up for things on your work email and vice versa, don't sign up for work things on your personal email if you can help it. So it's kind of like, a bit like, it's not quite as extreme as an online driver's license, but it's what you use to sign into everything, right? So you want to make sure that you're protecting yourself. So every online account that you have, whether you've signed up for a newsletter, whether you've signed up for, you've shopped at this one place one time and you've created an account, that all contributes to like your overall digital footprint. And by going through the accounts that you know that you have and getting rid of the ones you don't want and don't use, that's going to reduce your, what we call attack surface. So it's going to reduce that footprint that you've got online. So it's a good practice. It is time consuming and it's a lot of admin and effort that a lot of us don't have time to do. But just being aware of how many times you sign up for a thing or how many accounts that you create can be really helpful. Social media, of course, is a huge, I'm going to actually turn the light on. Social media is obviously a huge contributor to your digital footprint as well, because everything that you put online stays there. That's not to say that even if you delete it, it might be gone. Someone could take a screenshot, somebody could save something, it could turn up on another forum if somebody's shared it. So just be mindful of what you expose because of that digital trail. Now there is a website that you can use that you can check your email to see if you've been involved in any kind of data breach, and it's called Have I Been Pwned? And I've put the website link to the show notes, and basically if anything turns up, if you don't have that account or don't need that account anymore that shows up, close it. And if you do need that account, make sure you change the password and check your privacy and security settings, especially multi-factor authentication. The other resource that you've got for online cybersecurity advice for everyday people is NetSafe. So I've also put information on how you can use their resources below as well. Normally I also talk a little bit about a Broomstitch feature. Now I don't have one with me, but I wanted to let you guys know that I also have scented candles on my website. So I like to light a scented candle when I'm watching a movie and sitting down to knit, and I make my own quite often, so I decided to add some to the website. Now there's 4 different scents that I've got. One is called the Wild Skein, and that has an earthly, citrus, floral, complex, moody kind of feeling and scent. There is Moonlace, which is described as floral, aquatic, because it's quite fresh and it's kind of the imagery that it evokes for me when I burn it. Powdery, because it's quite soft, and sophisticated. Because it's got it's not a floral in the sense that it smells like potpourri, but it's floral in the sense that it's got some underlying hints of floral notes. Sweater Spell, so that is a fruity, soft woods, cozy, a little bit sweet kind of an autumn vibes candle, and Stitch and Sage, which is herbal and grounding and calming. There's lavender, there's white sage, and a couple of other things in there. So I just thought I'd let you know that those are there. I use them myself. They're a coconut soy blend wax, so they have a really long burn time and they burn really clean. And the wicks that I use are a recycled eco wick as well. So there's no nasty parabens, no nasties in the candles. And there's instructions and safety precautions on the candles as well. And they come in a black glass container with a bamboo lid. So if you want to create your own little magical space for doing some crafting, then I highly recommend that you have a look at my scented candles. Right, the books that I've been reading. I have finished the Mother of Death and Dawn by Carissa Broadbent, which was the third book in the series that I've been reading, and it was the longest one. I've been listening to it on Audible, which it was 21 hours long, but it was a fantastic book and it kept me engaged the whole time. I absolutely love the world that she created and the fantasy, and I just believed everything and bought into everything. Like, it was very well thought out. You get very highly invested in the characters. The books did make me cry a couple of times. There should be some trigger warnings in some of them. But all in all, it's a beautiful story of endurance between three people, really. Well, two people and Faye. It didn't quite end how I wanted it to, but nonetheless, it was a really good ending. So now I've just started on Jacinda Ardern's memoir, which is a different kind of power. So I got about halfway into the first chapter on my way home last night. So I'll let you know how that one goes as well. I also normally do a podcast review, and I mentioned before that Bex from Rebecca and Knits is a fellow upper hut knitter and podcaster, and so I thought I would highlight her podcast this time. So Bex is super sweet and has a really lovely cozy vibe about her podcast. She features a lot of New Zealand yarns. She's big on knitting from cones. She has a huge array of projects that she takes on, and there's always a sock or a mitt or something. I've had some really good inspiration from some of the patterns that she's picked, and I just love her work and how generous she is with her knitting. Like, she does a little bit of gift knitting as well. Yeah, but lovely, bubbly, friendly personality, cozy vibe, and just it's just like hanging out with a friend and chatting about knitting, and I really enjoy watching her content, so I highly recommend that you check her out. A little bit of a life update. I've kind of already given it to you. Unfortunately, I had a car accident a couple of weeks ago, and it ended up resulting in writing off my car. I did get a little bit of whiplash and a very, very minor concussion, but that's okay. It didn't really stop me doing anything, but I've had to buy a new car, which, whilst inconvenient and an awful way to have to go about it, has been really great getting to drive around this beautiful new car, and it's the fanciest one that I've ever had, and I love it. But other than that, there's not been a whole lot else going on for me. But there will be, because I'm taking tomorrow off to drive up to Hamilton so that I can go to Fibertron. So that's pretty exciting. Yeah, Fibertron is a festival that happens every year in Hamilton at the Mystery Creek Bledisloe Event Centre. It is organised and run by Paula from Purple Sprouting, and I've never been, so this is going to be my first year. It's free entry, and it happens on the Saturday, and there's heaps of vendors this year, lots of familiar faces, but I'm really excited to be going and getting to say hello to everybody. So if you happen to spot me, please come and say hi. I'd really love to meet you and get to hang out with some of my knitty friends. I'll be wearing my Calypso with the purple yoke and the grey body. I think that's what I've chosen to wear, but hopefully the purple hair might help me be more recognizable. But yeah, absolutely, please come and say hi if you see me. I mentioned last podcast that I'm going to do a bit of a giveaway because we reached 100 subscribers. So if you could like and subscribe to my podcast and leave a comment below with what you're enjoying or maybe with what you're not enjoying so much. In the next podcast, I plan to draw a winner from the entries from the previous episode and this episode. So if you'd like to get in on it, like this video, subscribe to the podcast, and leave me a comment below. That pretty much wraps everything up for me for this episode. Thank you for sticking with me if you've made it this long. I've just got a little bit of a request, I guess, as a general thing. If you can like and subscribe to my videos or to my platform, to my channel, it really does help with my reach and helps other people to find me, and gives me inspiration to basically keep doing this. So if you like it, please hit the subscribe button or the like button. I really appreciate you for being here and choosing to spend your time with me, because there's obviously a lot of knitting content out there. But I guess for now, that's all I have for today, and I hope you've been inspired by something that you've seen here. I'll leave you with my closing words of may your yarn never tangle and may your projects always enchant, and remember that a little magic goes a long way. Happy crafting, everyone, and I'll see you next time.